What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, and today, the Giants aren't practicing today. No OTA update for you. So, going to go ahead and spin this off into a different direction and have a conversation looking ahead to next month's training camp. Today, I want to talk about the Giants kicker dilemma. Do they even have one? How severe is this dilemma if they do have one? And what are their options at the kicker position if Graham Gano once again fails to live up to the expectations of his contract? So I've seen a couple comments in recent episodes, particularly from you, Sam Fountain, a member of this channel, asking us to talk about special teams. So today, going to go ahead and do that. Not doing a full special teams breakdown and recap. It's tough to do during OTAs because special teams is very physical, and they're not playing with pads on at these practices, so not a lot to take away from special teams there. But we can have a conversation about the kicker position and look ahead to what could end up becoming a training camp position battle here for the New York Giants. A very underrated, low-key one that not enough people, I feel, are discussing at this current juncture. So want to go ahead and dive into it, talk about Graham Gano, and talk about, could this be his last season with the New York Giants? Could he even see this season as a member of the New York Giants? So let's talk about Graham Gano and the way that he's played over the last couple of years. And now the big problem is that he hasn't played a whole lot. If you look at when he started his tenure with the New York Giants in 2020, I mean, he was a saving grace for the team from 2020 to 2022, an integral part of each and every win that the New York Giants had across those 3 seasons, an integral part of that playoff run that the New York Giants went on, surprisingly, in 2022. In 2020, he had a 96.9% conversion rate, which is truly remarkable, with a long kick of 55 total yards. And he went 31 of 32 on field goals and 21 of 23 on extra points. I mean, for like a 2-3 year stretch there, I know we were calling Graham Gano automatic. Like anytime he was stepping up to place kick, we felt like, all right, we're good. Let's take our 3 points and let's move. 2021 kicked 87.9%, also a good mark, 29 for 33, 17 for 17 on extra points. In 2022, 29 of 32, 90.6% conversion rate, and 32 of 34, 94% on extra points. And so I bring all that up to say over the last 2 years, there's been a clear regression from Graham Gano, who I will remind you is now 38 years old. He's entering his 16th season in the NFL. So he's getting up there in age, and he also is getting up there in total games missed due to injuries. In 2023, he played in only 8 games. He did knock in 100% of his extra points, going 8 for 8. But in those 8 games, he attempted 17 field goals. He hit only 11 of them for a 64.7% conversion rate, which is the lowest mark of his career and well below the league average. A very poor mark to find yourself at, especially when you're making the kind of money that Graham Gano is making, to put it matter of factly. And we will talk about his contract a bit more later on in this episode. But last season, we know that he did return to the lineup. He was banged up. He was in and out. He ended up playing 10 total games for the Giants. He went 9 for 11 on his field goals, which is an 81.8% conversion rate. That's not so bad. 15 of 15 on his extra points. I mean, listen, the 81.8% is still a far cry from when he was kicking at least 87% and in the 90s consistently for the majority of his tenure with the New York Giants prior to those injuries. But the fact that he only played in 10 games this past season, the fact that he only played in 8 games the season prior, and the fact that he's making enough money for the Giants to be able to cut him and save $4 million in salary cap space this offseason, it does make me question, is his job safe with the Giants? Because the best ability, oftentimes at the NFL level, it's availability. And for a kicker, if you're not available, what truly are you adding to the team? I mean, the kicker needs to be there week in and week out. It's a position that really shouldn't be getting injured often. Graham Gano has had some bad luck, and I'll just say it that way. I don't really think that he's done anything to put himself in a disadvantageous position and get himself injured in any way. He's really just had some bad luck. I mean, if you think back to week 2 last year, he had that groin tightness after week 1, and then he goes into that second game. He tries to chase down a return man on a long field goal return for the Washington Commanders pulls his hamstring, so it was disconnected from the groin. There was obviously a lot of debate at the time. Was that a related injury? Brian Dable seemed to indicate that it wasn't. I seem to feel like, hey, if you're running with a bad groin, there's a chance that you pull something else, so he shouldn't have been playing in that game. We've had those discussions about week 2 of last year. I don't want to dwell on that in this episode, but I just want to bring it up to mention, injuries. He's had some bad luck, and he's had a bad run with it over the last 2 seasons. Can the Giants depend on him to be available in 2025? Can he stay healthy and do what they need him to do this season? And if not, what are the alternatives? The alternatives are, of course, like they were last year. They could always hit the waiver wire. Who'd they have kicking for the Giants last year? Greg Joseph, Mason Crosby was one of these old, very old kickers, veteran guys. Can the Giants try and find a long-term solution, though? And do they have one on the roster? Well, they do seem to like Jude McAdam. I believe he's a Scottish kicker that the New York Giants have, and he only kicked in one game for the Giants last year. Went 1-for-1 in that game, 31 yards out, went 1-for-1 on extra point as well. Kicked 5 kickoffs last year. 4 of them resulted in touchbacks. So Jude McAdam has kind of been the Giants' practice squad kicker and their call-up guy when Graham Gano was injured last year. Can he maybe step in here, and does this become an open battle in training camp? Now, the New York Giants' new special teams coach, Mike Gobriel, I think is how you say his name, Gobriel, he did seem to indicate a couple weeks ago when asked about, or I think it was only last week, when asked about the kicker situation, he said that he's confident that Graham Gano is healthy and that he's confident he's going to return to full strength. But he did also seem to indicate that there is a position battle open, right? If somebody outperforms Graham Gano, there is absolutely an opportunity for them to save some money with Graham Gano and go with the younger, more available, and higher performing option if there is one during training camp. So this is where I will dive into that contract for Graham Gano and mention if the Giants release him, they will save $4.4 million in salary cap space. And that is important because the Giants currently have only $3.8 million in cap space. So they would more than double their total cap space by releasing Graham Gano and give themselves a lot more cushion up against the salary cap while moving on from a 38-year-old kicker who was making, what was his average annual salary? It was, well, his cap hit this year is 5.6 million. So they're shedding the overwhelming majority of that. But yeah, I mean, listen, with Graham Gano, last year he had a cap hit of 7.2 million and he was on the field for only 10 games. That's not really what you want to see from your highly paid kicker that you're paying $5 million at least per season to. So I think the Giants do have a big question mark here. I do think this has become a dilemma just because of the availability factor. And I think with Graham Gano, at 38 years old, 2 years in a row, missing a significant amount of time due to injuries, how does he prove that that's not going to happen again at his age? And I don't know if there is a way for him to prove that. But listen, I'll tell you one thing all around the NFL, if you do not have consistency at the kicker position, you do not have consistency as an offense either, because that's 3 points that you're missing after your offense just had a long, sustained drive. Maybe they're beat down. You go out there, those 3 points are valuable. You need to convert your field goals. And of course, extra points just as valuable. It all stacks up in the long run. Oftentimes, the leading scorer for a team at the end of the season ends up being the kicker because they knock in so many 3s and 1s. So I really think that the Giants need to consider this, because if Graham Gano isn't going to prove that he could stay healthy, if he picks up even a minor injury during training camp, sore ankle, pull hamstring again, take that 4.4 million, I think, and run with it. The only problem is, well, then who replaces him? Can you confirm that you're going to have a steady and available and consistently good kicker instead? Maybe not, but if you feel like there's a question mark as to whether or not Graham Gano is going to give you 17 games this season, I think you got to find a guy who you think gives you a higher chance of 17 games in a single season, because again, consistency at kicker is more important than anything. When kickers are coming in and out of the lineup, they're rusty and they start missing easy field goals and they start missing extra points. So again, I do think this has become somewhat of a dilemma for the Giants that they do need to consider. What is Graham Gano's future with this team? What's more valuable, 10 games of Graham Gano potentially kicking at around 85% from field goals, so that's kind of what he did last year, or is $4.4 million to spend, or just to give yourself some cap space, 4.4 million of it, is that more valuable? That's what the Giants ultimately need to determine, because then you have a guy like Jude McAdam, and let me find his. He makes $840,000 on his contract. He's literally the minimum. So you could potentially save 3.7 or 3.6 million there. I think it's 4.4. Yeah, okay. You can save over $3 million by releasing your veteran 38-year-old kicker and going with a younger, yes, far inexperienced option, sure, but 25 years old in Jude McAdam, and again, he's made an impression, a strong impression on the Giants coaching staff. That's why he's back on the veteran minimum with the Giants and why he's been a staple of their practice squad over the last 2 years. There's a reason he's here. And if the Giants are going to keep him here, and if Graham Gano is going to not be able to prove that he is a viable kicking option, then I think the Giants should give Jude McAdam a chance to win this job. And I think it will become a competition. I think both of these guys should be kicking in the preseason. And I think that there should be somebody really keeping track of the progress of Gano as he returns back to full strength. And there should be somebody keeping track of the stats during training camp. You know, who's knocking in more field goals consistently? Who is knocking in more extra points, converting them at a higher rate? And honestly, the winner of this battle should take the job, regardless of veteran experience or not, because even if you do have veteran experience like Graham Gano, who's been one of the best kickers in the NFL at a certain point in his career, while he hasn't been on the field much over the last 2 years, who's to say that even if he is healthy this year, he's going to return to how he was playing 3 years ago? I'm not entirely sure, because there definitely was a regression in his performance when he was on the field over the last 2 seasons. So I think it's going to be interesting to check the progress of this throughout the summer, and it's definitely something that we're going to be keeping track of here on Fireside Giants. How is Graham Gano performing? How is Jude McAdam performing? Do the Giants bring in any other kicking competition during training camp or the preseason? I definitely think they should. I think they should go out there and add another veteran or somebody who can kind of compete in this room alongside Gano and McAdam. I think there's a lot to consider here for the Giants, and once again, I am excited that the special teams coordinator did mention there is room for competition in that kicker room. So I do think this is a prove-it year for Graham Gano, especially because he has such a clear and obvious out in his contract. Saving $4.4 million is no joke. That's nothing to scoff at. That's a significant amount of cap space. And so if he is not going to be looking during training camp like the clear and obvious starting kicker that the Giants need, then I do think they should cut ties and move on with a younger and cheaper option. But ultimately, we will see. I'm rooting for Graham Gano. I really like Graham Gano. Like I said, he was integral 2020, 2021, 2022, and every single win, especially in that season that we did go to the playoffs. He had some really big moments and some big time kicks in the clutch. If he can continue to do that, you know, or if the Giants are confident that he will continue to do that, I want to see him back because I like Graham Gano and he is a good kicker. But the injuries are something to be concerned about, and the age is something to be concerned about. The best ability for a kicker, in my opinion, is availability. The second best ability after that is consistency. And consistency for a kicker has not necessarily been there for Graham Gano over the last 2 years. Neither has the availability. So he needs to be ultra consistent throughout the summer to prove that he can be the starter and be the Giants kicker this season. And of course, he needs to be available throughout the summer as well to prove that he's going to be healthy in 2025. And if he is, then the Giants will run it back with him. If not, take that $4.4 million, go ahead and run with it. So this is kind of a preview for next month when we do get into potential roster cut candidates and some cap casualty candidates. There's quite a few of them, and some of them might surprise you. And Graham Gano might be one that surprised some of you. But I wanted to bring this up and take an early look at it because it is a slower part of the offseason. There is no practice for the Giants today. And looking ahead to training camp, this is one of the more underrated storylines for all of us to pay attention to as we do get into training camp. What is the future of Graham Gano with the New York Giants? So I'm curious to know what you guys think as well. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go New York Giants.
Perfect.